We've got Antace joining us. All right, and we're recording. Wonderful. We'll let people settle in for a minute or two, and then we will get this WebXR Production Summit Town Hall off the ground. I'm excited about this. And we've got Julie Smithson here, my co-host, and the rest of the team. How are you doing, Julie? You all right?
Good. I'm good. Thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm calling in from Toronto, just outside of Toronto in Canada. Today, we're talking about my favorite topic, production.
Production, right.
Get it done.
Let's get this thing built, right?
Yeah. Let's
this
do that.
elusive metaverse built.
Yeah, exactly. We've talked about it. We know how, we talk about all the ways to develop it and the way Bryant come in with Sophia a couple of weeks ago, with Karen a couple of weeks ago. Before that, education. Now it's time about how to do it.
Right. And Ben was saying, actually, this is coming full circle because last year, the first summit was actually developers, if I remember correctly.
It was last summer. Right.
Yeah.
We did a business summit last year that was kind of aligned with this, but this is getting into details.
Coming back around to production is really exciting, and Ben also made the point that there's a lot of conversations need to happen, but even more actual work needs to happen, and so it's about that time.
I would love it, Daniel, if you could give a background on why you are the perfect person to lead these discussions with everything that you've been doing with the educators in VR specifically. I think that's
I'd love to.
Incredible.
I'd love to, yeah. Well, thanks for that invitation to talk. Love the sound of my own voice. Not really. But a little background. I've been in education for about 20 years, probably more. Grew up in a very European family, learning lots of languages, and teaching and teacher training was something kind of a family trade, if you like. And then about 4 years ago, after trying various educational technologies, I chanced upon a VR headset. It was a cardboard headset that I wanted to show my son. And I loaded this experience at the International Space Station, and my career changed overnight. Within a few days, I joined every Facebook group I could find, and then discovered that you could do social VR was a thing. You could meet people in this VR. So that took me into Altspace, and in Altspace, I suggested that we have an educators meetup, and that went from one event a month to I think now we probably have 8, 9, 10 events a week. So we'd certainly have 20 teams, if not more. And over the past 4 years, we've run in the region of 3,500 events, small workshops, presentations, including 2 very large scale summits. One was in February 2020, and that's probably where I met most of this team. It was off the back of the summit that we did there. And we've just been very fortunate to work with a huge community of educators around the world, listening and learning and sharing. And I consider myself a connector. That's where I feel most comfortable. And I think that the team should share that we see good things happening over here, hear another person doing good stuff over there, put them together and sit back and watch the magic happen. And bringing a community together like this is the equivalent of what we've been doing with educators in VR, but specifically for WebXR. So I suppose another reason why it feels natural to be hosting one of the WebXR summits is that I'm in love with WebXR. I think it's where we needed to be headed. There'll always be space for good app-based VR, but the web will be the first to be truly interoperable. And with technology accelerating the way it is, I think we'll be able to stream a lot of stuff. And then the web is where I think the real promise lies for me, and also in terms of accessibility, right? In terms of reaching those people who need it most. So that's the work with educators and VRs, democratizing education. And then the work with Virtual World Society is, all about providing impact with this technology and making sure it stays benevolent. So that's a little bit of where I'm coming from. I'm just very grateful to work with Ben and Sophia, Karen, and Julie, and this community. So I'm really, really excited that we probably, many of us are here. We've got 20 people on the call. Thank you for being here. We're expecting a few more throughout the next 2 hours. And we got, I'm sure, some really, really interesting perspectives. So let's jump in. Hands up, who's registered for next? Oh, Julie, you wanted to say something.
No, I was just going to give a bit of housekeeping ideas and kind of lay out the
please.
format for this session, because this week's a little bit more formal, right? We've got the next 2 hours together. We're going to lay out basically what's going to happen in next week's 9-hour session of the production summit and who's speaking and all of that stuff. So we'll go through that. But today is about open conversation, and we want to hear from you, because you're going to hear from all the experts next week, but we want to kind of get that baseline knowledge, what's going on out there right now that we need to talk about. And if you've followed any of our shows before, I do a bit of sense making behind the scenes. We're kind of gathering those takeaways that everybody needs to have. And we've got a few ways of communicating. We're on Discord. Maybe Sophia can drop that into the chat to make sure that we've got everybody into a channel that we keep this conversation going. And the most important thing that we're doing is sharing stuff, right? It's about sharing templates and case studies and processes. The word process is like being drilled into my brain this week, because it's all about production, and somebody asked me the other day, what does it take to get a client, that convinced, lift them over that convincing barrier to dive in, to invest, to figure out what that is. And because there isn't a process, it's unknown, right? So they're scared. I think this summit I've been so excited about, because I feel like this is the missing puzzle for a lot of convincing of the C-levels of why they need to do this. I think they're already convinced why they have to jump in the game. How they do it, that's the question. We're all here today, right? The production is how do we do this? So first of all, if anybody wants to jump in at any time, even like while I'm talking, while Daniel's talking, put up your hand. As soon as we do it, it'll go into sequence and we all have our say. I'm going to be jotting down notes in the background with Sophia and team. But today's an open conversation, right? About production.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can use the raise hand function. And some of you, if you're using Zoom, I've noticed when I raise my hand, it actually activates the hand raise icons. So that's quite cool if you want to use that as well.
Yeah.
And as you're talking
and you can chat too, like create a conversation.
Absolutely, yeah. Feel free.
Introduce yourself. Everybody can pull out their, their contact information if you want to hook up and connect afterwards. That's another big piece.
Absolutely. And as you're talking about production there and helping people develop trust, it's really the producers where the buck stops about what can and can't be done. Right? So we can talk, but there's so much talk. Conversations are important, but when it comes down to it, it's the producers that are going to end up delivering. Yeah. So you have to manage.
You can see that relationship change too when you're, the salespeople of the team are talking, and then it's like, here's our production team, and then they go, oh, you're the people that know all the bits and pieces, the connections, networks, how do we do this? What do you need from us to make this done? Yeah. And that's the next question too. That's also about processes.
The meta whisperers.
We're the meta whisperers.
I have a question for everyone. Is there anyone on this call who's involved in producing aspects in production? We've got AJ, was that you raised your hand there? Want to share with us a little bit about what kind of production work you do?
I took a chance a few years ago to develop with A-Frame, and it was new and it was kind of crazy. I've been a web developer for years. 15 years, Amazon has looked the same for 10 years to me. So it was getting boring. And then A-Frame came along, and that took me on a deep dive into 3.js and playing around with new things and learning new skills. I quickly discovered that some people like making games, some people like making other content. The storytelling aspect for me was very appealing. I like the timeline, the storyboard, you know, the script writing. So I get stressed out because I'm doing so many tasks, and I try to work with people when I can, but I've found that I actually enjoy the production process and taking on a lot of roles to produce content. My main problem, I think, at the minute is because WebXR, I mean, WebAR to me is quite unreliable, so I've not been focusing on that. But WebVR, you know, WebXR, for me, trying to market that to the right people has been a problem because it's new technology. People that they're not geeks like me. I'm a bit of a geek, you know, but you forget that people aren't up to speed. They don't understand the technology and how the technology can be used to market their products. That's the connection. I'm on a journey right now, trying to put the pieces together to work out how to easily sell this to clients that could benefit from it. And it's very difficult because it's kind of new, you know.
Fair enough. So you're right in the weeds there, AJ, with clients and producing results for them. I imagine there's a lot of hand-holding involved in that, a lot of managing expectations as well. We have Zuri here. Zuri, you say that you're new to production space, working in Unreal Engine for virtual productions. How's that going for you?
A blast, to tell you the truth. Hi everybody, my name is Zuri Chavers. I'm representative for Ultravision Studios, which is my company. It's a startup. Virtual production with Unreal has been a blast. Honestly, it's a learning curve, don't get me wrong, because I didn't come from a gaming or a coding background. I actually have a degree in filmmaking. And so I was able to get started with virtual production under the guise of that with a cohort who kind of tailor-made a program based around virtual production and Unreal. My goal, though, is to be able to transition what I'm learning into the web space and to be able to make a 3D website. But to my understanding, there is no, you know, program that takes Unreal and makes it like accessible to like a WebXR experience.
I was gonna say, Zuri, I actually have been in a WebXR experience that had elements of Unreal woven into it. I don't know, technically I don't know how that was done, but I know that the developers had worked with Unreal to make that possible. So don't be discouraged. I can't
CYBRXR.com, CYBRXR.com.
That's the one, Ben.
Yeah, that is Digital Nation Entertainment. Cyber is their entertainment division, and they have their own secret sauce that exports Unreal to WebXR with amazing results. But there are a lot of people out there that are actually working on it, but there is no particular plugin or export feature that's native.
Thanks, Ben, for reminding me. CyberXR and Digital Nation.
Okay,
that's
cool.
right.
I'm pulling it up now. Thank you, guys. The harder they fall is the first thing I see. So cool. Thank you.
My pleasure. All right. Anyone else doing any work with production of any kind? And I was going to say, Zuri, that the lines between, you know, digital film technology and Unreal, and back to what AJ was saying about storytelling, they're blurring a lot, right? If I remember correctly, The Last Lion King was actually shot in VR, if I remember correctly. One of the speakers next week at the production summit is John Gress, who's 30 years experience in visual effects industry. He'll be talking about his experience with production in the metaverse, and his company, I love the name, is called the Metaverse Construction Company. What a fantastic name. So he'll actually be kicking off with him and hopefully another guest right at the first kind of conversation fireside chat. So look out for that as well. But the lines with storytelling is blurring a lot. Yeah, when you were talking, AJ, about talking to clients, do you feel that you're having to wear a lot of hats? So you have to wear your geek hat to get your kick, and then you have to wear your coding and development hat to kind of deliver. But then when you're with clients, you're having to be a consultant and an advisor and a coach almost. I don't know. So I'm in the education space. We work with a lot of companies who want training and universities who are interested in how to integrate this, how to get started. And a lot of it is conversations, managing expectations. People don't want to look stupid. And when they don't know, they feel scared about making a mistake or looking stupid. So it's making them feel comfortable. Do you share that in production?
Yeah, like I say, I think it's a case of condensing the benefits down into something that people understand. I have a big problem with on my own website. I've not used the word metaverse once, and I have a problem trying to define it. And I think that as soon as you throw that word at people, I mean, even to me as somebody that works in that space, like, what does it mean? You know, like which part of this and which technology and who for? It doesn't. It's not well defined to me, even as somebody involved in the industry. As a buzzword, it's great. Well, I like what Facebook have done. I understand it as what it is, but I think even that's something that can confuse clients. So I think the way that you package this and sell it, you know, people like bronze, gold, silver, they just want a price. And it's very difficult to do that when you've got a lot of custom work, a lot of production time, and maybe third-party costs that are going into a job. It's very hard to say, you know, this will cost X amount, because everybody's different. Everybody's needs are different. That has been a big hurdle for me. But I think that if it's sold properly to people in a language that they understand, I mean, I don't come from a technical background. You know, I didn't go to university myself. I'm self-taught. 15 years, 8 languages, all the stress and wrinkles that came with it. You know, I took my own journey, so I'm able to deal with people on a level where maybe that they'll understand. But you know, I try not to confuse people and flood them with terminology.
As you were talking there about using the word metaverse or not, it triggered a series of thoughts, and one of them is there's a book by Bruce Chatwin called Songlines, which is about the Aborigine, some of the Aborigine people in Australia, and they have a tradition. They didn't have GPS and sat-nav. They had to traverse a whole continent, and they did it via songs. And the book is called Songlines. And so the songs are the map. And so you learn the songs, and it's a reference, and it's a mental model, which is fascinating. The next thought triggered me that the Bible, in the beginning was the word, right? So we have this word metaverse before it even exists. But the more we use it, the more we talk it, the more we question it, we iterate towards it, and it will eventually, there will be something that we generally recognize as the metaverse. I'm getting more confident that this will happen.
Are you going to start playing the song for us, Daniel? We're going to have like a record album about the elements of the metaverse, so we can all remember.
But yeah, you know, sometimes we have to dream things up before they become reality.
Right. Well, I think that's part of the problem. If the metaverse, from my understanding, is decentralized, Facebook has their own version, I create my own version, everybody's got their own version. I don't know if a blanket term is
That's
useful.
That's a multiverse, right?
You're right. I don't know if a blanket term is useful for something so varied and you know, different in places. So.
Well, that's why this team has been working over the past year on something called Meta Traversal. The initiative is to build interoperability, right? That the promise of the metaverse isn't delivered until it's freely traversable. And interestingly, that initiative gave rise, or was part of the inspiration for what's now the Metaverse Standards Forum, which is a global body of international partners really spearheading standardization. So there is progress, but it always takes slower, especially for developers. It takes longer than you want, right? You've got the wish list that just keeps growing. So Amani, we've got Amani on the call here. Are you with us, Amani? Amani is someone we've worked with educators in VR. How are you doing, Amani?
Yeah, hi Daniel. How are you? Hi, Julie.
You well?
Hello, Amani.
Yeah.
All right.
Why don't you tell us what you do? Because Amani does something really interesting, actually. So maybe give her the floor for a second. You should introduce your work.
So actually, we're starting this platform. It's called Language Cities. And it's a VR game for language learning. And we're actually doing, so it's more of a user-centered approach to language learners, and also a community for learners and educators. And the game is research-based, and also it's based on lots of frameworks so that we can inhibit, like it's based on lots of theories so that we can motivate learners. And so it was really a tough beginning, because we're kind of, at the very beginning, we were kind of, no, it's going to be a VR, totally immersive VR. But then we talked about like accessibility. We need students to access, the game, and we're kind of facilitating learning so that it has to be inclusive. And also we talked about, so what kind of games can be also available to different types of learners, like, for example, those who have learning disabilities, especially that I'm also working on another game for ADHDers. It's a VR game. Right. And so it was really,
that's interesting.
I started with a passion.
How's the production side of that going?
So we're kind of, we're gonna like, the production side, we are kind of in progress, and testing things, and we kind of started like storyboarding and then doing stuff in Unity and stuff like that, so that we can test that, and interviewing students and teachers. Right. And so we got lots of ideas, because I always tell my team that what we are looking for is stories from users, and these stories actually inspire the production.
Fantastic. I mean, there are so many projects being built, and when that reaches a critical mass, these times are interesting to me. I know there's frustrations and confusion about words and this and that, but all of the work that people like you and AJ and we've got Yinch on the call here, and Florian, we've got so many people building, developing, innovating. It's like the when water freezes and that first crystal starts, and then the whole surface starts crystallizing, it starts building out. It feels a little bit like that. So wanna call on Yinch here. We've got Yinch, you're actually a Poly Award winner from developer of the AR Experience of the Year last year. Welcome, Yinch. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanks, Daniel, for the introduction.
Yeah.
I'm excited that this Web Summit is being run. I remember the Web Summit from it's not quite 2 years ago, but I remember that the Web Summit was absolutely crammed full of content, and at the town hall people were saying, oh, we need a stream for this, we need a stream for that, and we were going like, this is out of control. And I'm so pleased to see that this year we've started addressing the separate parts of it, that we've had a brand summit, we were having the production summit, we had a design, and so this is great. So thanks to you and the team for rising to the challenge. I know these things are not trivial to organize, but I'm so grateful that it's happening. I am very much a production side person. I used to work in Unity making VR for PC VR, but most recently, I say recently, it's a couple of years now, I've probably moved all my production and employment to WebXR, which is why I'm very interested in these summits. Though I am interested in technology and the development side of things, my high level view of WebXR is that, and with any technology that wants to survive, is that it has to mature from being a technology to being a medium.
Yes.
It has to mature from being a technology to a medium. And how can you tell when something has matured from technology to a medium? Is people stop mentioning the technology. When WebXR succeeds, nobody will talk about it ever again. You know, people talk about, oh, I want to watch a movie on Netflix. Nobody says, oh, I want to watch a H.264 compressed network video stream. Like, nobody cares. Nobody cares. This is invisible. It becomes about the content. So I think WebXR is in this sort of a tricky teenage space where we are still starting to produce the content, but with a lot of legacy tooling and legacy processes, a process to the word that Julie mentioned earlier. And we are kind of crowbarring or shoehorning some legacy behaviors and expectations into what is like a completely new medium. I think WebXR and VR in general, and WebXR specifically, is posed with new design challenges, which do not carry directly from the previous digital iteration. People used to working on 2D screens, are used to things being flat and contained, but the people actually best suited for designing for immersion are actually architects, interior designers, exhibition designers, product designers, people who are used to physical spaces. And they are not, they weren't in the last generation, they're actually in the 7th generation of what they do. So my dream really is not just that we make more content. I mean, I hope we make more content. But what I really like to see happen is that the barriers to creation are lowered and lowered until they become invisible. An example I always use is the difference between TikTok and Adobe Premiere. I mean, Adobe Premiere produces videos and TikTok produces videos, but they're completely different stages of tools. And I'm looking for the day when WebXR and VR becomes as easy to produce as it is to make a TikTok video. I know that's a crazy dream. Now everybody knows I'm crazy. But from the production side of stuff, I've made a skiing game out here, Ski Fit 365, which is approaching 1 million views now. I made an Airbus 320 simulator for flight school. And down below here is an MRI training machine for a medical equipment company. And so I've been in the WebXR, all those are WebXR things.
How
I've
you...
been in...
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I finished.
Please go on.
Many of you might be aware that the next week, I think, there might well be a new product launch from Meta with this new headset. I'm personally excited about it, not because it's that company, but because it's a new type of headset with the color pass-through. And I think we're going to start seeing more content being built. And I think they're tuning it to Spark AR. Do you know Spark AR well enough to understand whether that's the kind of tool and workflow that you're talking about? The difference between, like, would you say Adobe and TikTok?
I only know Spark in terms of its output. I've seen lots of people produce things for it. I think it's still slightly technical, and some people correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that Spark definitely has delivered the broadest range of AR experience of anything. I mean, the stuff I've seen them do in Spark AR, it's just absolutely phenomenal. But I don't know whether the technological production of it is simplified yet. So I'm really looking forward. I'm hoping to, and it's not just about building, but also deploying it as well. So if we talk about WebXR needing to be social, needing to be scalable and stuff, then there are a couple of challenges to overcome, which are, and also if you're talking about it being able to run on the most common headset, which is the Quest 2 untethered, then we're talking about like mobile phone levels of power, whereas the previous generation of VR users are used to GPU power, desktop, and so expectations are slightly different. We are kind of at a divergence point where the previous generation of VR users have expectations built up based on powerful GPUs. And then there's another tier, another population of users who have experienced no VR at all. The last VR they saw was on their little phone. And so I think that there is a discontinuity that we have to acknowledge when we build for this incoming population, that that we are appealing to their needs and to their understanding of the medium, that they are not technical, they don't own expensive PCs. And so there's a tooling challenge as much as anything. We can produce the stuff. I mean, I work in Unity, I work in an engine called Wonderland Engine, which Florian is also an expert in.
And I was just going to call on Florian after you.
And the reason why I moved from Unity to Wonderland Engine, which was very painful for me because I love Unity, don't get me wrong, but Unity, the core of Unity's power lies in its desktop legacy. It does have a web export path, which is still better supported than the Unreal path. But because its core business is around desktop, its WebXR support is it's very tenuous. Yeah, it works. But so I built, so this game you see here, the Ski Fit 365 game that you see up there, I built it first in Unity, and at about 80% of the feature set, I ran out of power in Unity. There was nowhere left to go. I couldn't add anything. I couldn't finish the game. I was stuck. Then Wonderland came along. Jonathan Hale at Wonderland came along, and he said, and he'd been bugging me to switch over to Wonderland like for months before then, and I was finally stuck. And so he helped me with the port, and I haven't looked back. And this was, I mean, I'm partly telling this story. Not that Wonderland is not a technical tool. You need to know JavaScript. There's a drag and drop interface, but it's still a little bit technical. But it shows the importance of having the right tool, having a tool that hasn't got the legacy of trying to achieve something else. Wonderland only does WebXR, and I use it for absolutely everything. And so that's my path.
That's really encouraging. I'm not very technical myself. I'm more an educator and a user of the facilities we've got, but I know enough to know how popular Unity is. But to hear you say that there are viable alternatives, that's super encouraging. So with that, I'm going to introduce Florian Izicki here of White Rabbit XR. Thanks for joining, Florian. How are you doing?
Hey, thank you, Daniel, for having me. Appreciate you guys having these town halls. Always glad to watch, and I think it's my first time actually participating, and I'm glad to be here. So I've been working on WebXR for the last 4 years, I think. We started off with Unity as well, and slowly realized that there were a lot of, like back in the day, there wasn't even the add-on by dpanther to properly have WebXR. It was WebVR, and it was always like you had to update the games because the specs were changing up every week, basically. Went to the A-Frame. I did a lot of stuff with 3JS and things like that. And then with Jonathan, who then started Wonderland, we've been switching over to Wonderland. And we've also created Construct Arcade, the WebXR games platform. And I've been seeing tons of users playing it. I've also seen like my games get almost 700, like 800K visits since last year. So one of the games, that's pretty good. We've been creating, thank you so much. We've been creating like tons of WebXR content ever since. A lot of demos that haven't even seen the light. And recently I've also started, kind of like an agency type of business, also on the side next to making the games. Our latest game, Boulder World, is also on the platform, and I'm also working with other people on other projects. So I don't know if I can say much about those projects right now, but I've seen WebXR mature so much in the last couple of years. Companies, brands coming in, and people talking about potential collaborations, people from all kinds of industries, and it's been a hell of a ride. And like Daniel, you're saying, the new headset, that's going to be really interesting for me as well.
Oh, okay. You're looking for Wonderland to make use of that new functionality?
I think like I don't know the exact specs, obviously, of the device that's coming, but things like facial mimic, gesture tracking, eye tracking, those things are going to be really exciting for specifically multi-user experiences and actually trying to convey emotions and things in WebXR. I think works really well. Like Hubs is Hubs is not like exactly realistic, obviously, but like just having an avatar and looking at people and speaking to them and seeing like the mouse move already gets like halfway there, I think. And if we actually have like people's faces being tracked and represented in virtual spaces, I think that brings us a lot closer to this image of the metaverse where we can kind of be something and someone and interact, right?
Fantastic. I shouldn't forget, of course, that Wonderland won Software of the Year and was nominated for 6 experiences. So whatever you're doing it well, and it's popular with the people who experience it. I know I was a judge on some of those experiences as well. There's a question in the chat: does Wonderland Engine have a group like Discord or a cohort for learning it? Can you point people to that? That's from Zuri. Yeah.
There's a Discord server. I can send you a link in the chat as well.
Nice. There you go. Yes. Yinch has beaten you to it.
Yinch.
Thank you.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
Wonderland's been amazing for many things. Also, I've been contributing to the Wonderland ecosystem a bit as well, components and a lot of people asking how to do certain stuff. I've been asking, how do I do this, how do I do that? So it's kind of like a niche community that helps each other out. So it's pretty nice seeing like new people come in. It's still like Inch said, a bit technical though, but I hope in the future we can share more components and then have more people coming in that just drag and drop ideally, but that's obviously not as easy as saying it is.
I want to thank you for that, Florian. One of the words that stuck with me from what Zuri said earlier on was about stories. Who else feels that, and Yinch, you were talking about a technology fading and the medium kind of taking center stage. How do we feel about, or does anyone else share that sentiment that the concept of stories is important for this medium? Is that, go AJ, you're raising your hand there.
So the reason I got the reason I liked VR so much and took a big chance on it years ago was because of the immersive storytelling capabilities. It was games like Half-Life Alyx, and I didn't play games for 20 years. I'm not a game player. I've got businesses to run and money to make, bills to pay. But when I got into Half-Life Alyx, my mind was blown. That was my moment. And I'd tried a few things before, and I think that as a creator, the ability to manipulate that environment was always very attractive. But it was the storytelling and immersive experience of the entertainment that really got me. Games are great, and pew pew pew, and we can do all that, but it's the journey. The gameplay became less relevant to me because I was get it over with quick, get the task over with, like boring. I wanted to know what happened next, and that's where I started to realize, I like the journey that I'm going on. It's not the interaction so much and the gameplay. It's more the journey, the story, the entertainment that was playing out, and that to me was very important. And I'm sure other people might feel the same as well.
Yeah, it's good you mentioned that, AJ, because I remember when I was playing Half-Life 2 years ago, I got to a certain level of proficiency, and then I got stuck. The enemies were too hard, so I went into the console. I turned on God mode so I could see the rest of the story. And I think there is an important thing that's going on here. It's not just in VR, but as digital interactive entertainment becomes more and more mainstream, I think the medium will transition from being sport to being story, from sport to being story. And the one of the main divergences is that when you are playing a sport, you have to be good at something to progress. And that is a massive. Lots of games continue to feed that people's competitive drive and the drive to improve themselves in certain skills. But if you look at any sort of like sports event, whether it's football, soccer, whatever it is, my thing is that if video games is like sport, then you're basically selling it to the 22 people on the field. But if video games is story, then you're selling it to the 60,000 people sitting in the stands. And so I think the growth of VR, the growth of any medium comes when it becomes consumable. And the thing about story is that it's not a thing we recently invented. Story is an ancient thing inside the back of our brains. So reaching story is a thing that every medium has to do, just because we experience life through story. And VR and WebXR just is most powerful and enables us to tap into something that is quite like ancient inside our psychologies.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Jens. And for everyone, like Julie said, if you have any comments to want to share, like Amani and Florian, use the raise hand function. So with that, Amani, you were talking about stories earlier as well. Go on, Amani, over to you.
Yeah, I love the stories about Half-Life Alyx, and I want to talk about stories from a different perspective, which is early stages of production. And specifically what I use and many of my colleagues use, which is the design thinking model, which starts with empathy. And so when you use the empathy map, we try to understand the user's perspective, what they see, what they feel, their frustrations. And I remember an interesting story, but I don't remember the guy's name. It's like the movie Monsters, Inc. that was by Pixar. And in his course, he said that he started telling the story at the beginning to many people, and then he was frustrated at the early stages. And then he started like bettering the story. And then he realized that at one stage, he was experiencing being a father. And so this relates to many people. And this actually produces empathy. And so this is what I've been telling. And one of the things that we've been doing when I started teaming up with, it's a project for the ADHD. And so my team, they were thinking of starting first with a storyboard. And this actually reflects what Professor Stephen Rees, he has this interesting phrase, which is called self-hugging. So sometimes we have this way of assumptions that my idea is gonna be great and the story, everybody will love the story. But then probably when we start listening to users and understanding the story, we can actually create one that can be really compelling. And so I started telling them, well, let's look for communities. And there's actually an interesting community in Altspace. It's called the ADHD or neurodiversity. And when they learned about their stories, they were fascinating. And actually we incorporated it in the game. So it's really interesting to start first with the user and to listen to the user and to understand their why. And because sometimes we have the why, but we need to understand the user's why as well, so that we can convince them that our product is really good for them.
Interesting. Thank you so much for that, Amani. Design thinking and empathy. I've heard someone call virtual reality an empathy machine or an empathy engine. Zuri, you've got your hands up next.
Hi, I think Florian was ahead of me, I think. Am I wrong, Florian?
I'm not sure. We have enough time for Florian as well.
I was, but go ahead, go right ahead. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys. So I used to run a clubhouse room called Storyteller Spitball. And the goal of the room is to basically get the ball rolling on a story. Everybody contributes. So we would have up to 5, 10, 20 people all telling the same story at once. And I think it's a really good metaphor for what the metaverse is, right? Because when you think about these rooms, or when you think about what the constructs are currently for the metaverse, it's kind of just like a room, right? And everybody gets an avatar, and now what do you do? And so if people are ultimately going to be engaged in contributing to one story, then how can we make it something that has a practical takeaway? You know, like what if, like I was mentioning in the chat that I learned really well through cohorts and through groups. So when it comes to it, like I could definitely learn how to code on my own, and I have all the JavaScript books behind me. You can't see them because I'm embarrassed at how my room looks. but I can show you what it like. I have JavaScript, I have Ethereum, I have all sorts of books. The Giant, I read them every day, but it really doesn't like give me the type of engagement that I need. So as somebody who learns through hands-on experience with other people, how can we storify that to make it something that people walk away with practical use skills? One of the things that I like about VR is that people use it so often for their training, right? Like for their onboarding, for working and stuff, like the scenario when it comes down to like Walmart or there's countless others. But what we don't seem to connect is all three things. So yes, you have the empathy, yes, you have the training, and yes, you have a metaverse where everybody can hang out. But like, is there one place with everything? And that's kind of what I hope to achieve with the company I'm starting. I'm sure everybody has something like that they're hoping to achieve, but yeah, I just wanted to throw it out there.
Fantastic, thank you for that. When just before you said to storify something, I made a note in my notebook. I know there's gamified learning, and Julie and I have talked about that at length. I wonder if this is already a thing, storified learning. Maybe that's for another conversation. But you know, a learning journey. I know that learning journeys are definitely a thing, but storified learning is a concept, maybe. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I think it would also tie into gamification, right? Like there's that leads into more of the why are people going into this experience? What are you going to get them to do in there?
Yeah.
And there's also two different conversations, and I'll pass it over to Florian, but marketing is one avenue as we start to create fun stuff. And then there's the business applications of training and the serious stuff of like having to learn, you know, a massive machine or a process of something. So there's definitely two different types of journeys, but they still have to be built the same way. It still needs to be laid out. So, sorry, I just thought I'd connect that storify to the gamify word, because you can have a story, you can listen to it, but if you want them to come back again, you're going to have to do something fun to make it come back.
Love that. Okay. We're going to ask Florian just a moment, and then I want to come to Daniel. We've got Daniel Lundgren here from FutureWay, so I'm going to call on you. Get your notes ready, Daniel. But first, Florian. Florian.
Hey, I just wanted to share that I've worked on VR movies before. I've worked on games most of the time in the recent times. And what I've seen is in our online communities that players also take the moments they had in the game, which, you know, culminate either in a score or in moments that they like to share with others. So there's a lot of story creation that comes out of the experiences. I think we saw that, especially with things like Minecraft, that you know, create a lot of these narratives around the worlds that they have, or the servers and the things that the people build, and people can customize them, they can mod the experiences. And I think like Minecraft is one of those metaverse-y things before it, you know, the term was anywhere near where it is today. That this emergent gameplay aspect of where you can put stories, you can put learning experiences with things like Minecraft education. I think those are super important also going forward for WebXR as well. Something that, you know, many people are moving towards. Like we have Horizons Worlds trying to create all these kinds of like different experiences that people create that, you know, tell different stories essentially. I think that's very valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Storification and gamification are two of the structures, at least, that seem to be broadly employed. So, Daniel, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know what FutureWay is doing in the work on developing the ecosystem at a higher level. I know you're really involved in that work.
Yeah, definitely. So that's so just to support the overall ecosystem. That's why we've been the like lead sponsor of these summits.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for your support.
So that's one part that's really important, and the other one, just a reflection as well, which is kind of, I think, obvious to everyone. But most WebXR experiences are optimized for one hardware and one browser that only works on that hardware, right? So that's the situation more or less, that everything is built for the Quest together with the Quest browser.
Right.
And what you see more and more, especially happening now with the Pico announcement the other week and so on, there's a growing hardware ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
That growing hardware ecosystem does not have access to a WebXR browser, more or less. There was a Firefox Reality browser. We know about that one. Hasn't been any efforts on that since 2.5 years back. So that's the reason that I'm also the lead sponsor behind the Wolvik browser.
Yeah, again, thank you for your support with that.
Yeah, thank you. Which is developed by an open source software consultancy company called Igalia, a Spanish company, which is doing a great job. So we're the like the lead sponsor, and there are other sponsors coming in as well.
Fantastic.
So then
you mentioned the Pico headset. I've been speaking to them over the past few months. I was under the impression that that will launch with a browser. Am I mistaken? Is that?
Yeah, so there are browsers both on HTC and Pico and so on, but there's only one browser that's keeping up and trying to get as mature and as possible and adding features. And that is if you work directly with Igalia for the Wolvik browser. There are variants of the open source Firefox Reality browser, but they're using old versions of Gecko, and the experience is not good. And also Wolvik, as of today, is in version 1.1. Still, there are a lot of issues if you compare it to what's really optimized for the Quest with the Quest browser. So we're working on fixing that and getting Wolvik to become the best totally hardware agnostic, cross-device, cross-experience browser available. And I think that's really important for the ecosystem.
Agreed. Agreed, and that it could run on any of the headsets, because I'm quietly hopeful that we will see more diversity in the hardware market. I mean, the Pico's coming out. There's the European efforts behind
Lynx.
Is it Lynx? Lynx.
Yeah.
Is that one? I know that Valve Index are working on a tetherless device, and that Somnium Space are investing in an open source device. Of course, how many of these make it to maturity and really hit the mass market, we don't know, but I'm a little encouraged that there are some more devices coming.
You have a HTC, you have a Huawei, you have Pico, so this will grow for sure. And you need a browser. If we're talking about WebXR, you need a browser that's working really well on all devices, not only on Quest.
Yeah.
That's one thing we're working on. The other one is our team is spending a lot of time testing all available WebXR experiences across the different browsers and across the different hardware. And then you realize that apart from being optimized initially for Quest ecosystem, you realize that there are like issues, if you like, everything from the content to the use of the different frameworks, development platforms, different hardware are implementing the OpenXR slightly differently. So really in this end-to-end, there are issues. So that's another project we're running, trying to understand what can be fixed or improved in this kind of end-to-end chain as well. So we started to work directly with some of the development platforms, some content developers to help maybe speed up or help fix issues. So we have like resources to do that as well.
Well, once again, thank you for the important work you're driving and supporting there for the entire ecosystem. I think everybody in this call will benefit. hardware providers, the developers, and the people who end up experiencing it, right? It makes it all more accessible, more interoperable. So can't thank you enough for your support there.
Of course, thank you.
Yeah. Do you have any words of advice to the other kind of producers, developers, creators here on this call, or any requests for people that might help drive your efforts, support your efforts?
Yeah, for the content developers, please test your experience on Wolvik using the Quest 2. Just compare it with the experience you have on the Quest browser. Do a side-by-side comparison. Look into where is there anything on your side, or is it related to one of the frameworks, or where do you visualize? And
are you wanting feedback on that as well? Is that what you're like, or like to help support your development, or is it just make sure it runs well?
Yeah, so definitely we can help out if there is something specific. Like Yinch, SkiFit 365 is like one of the best experiences out there, one of the best games. We could discuss as well if we could help you, you know, or if you work directly with Jonathan and the team. But we're kind of behind that effort as well to try to help.
Yeah,
I'd be interested. So I try to keep up. I'm like everybody else. I'm looking for some diversity in the hardware platform. So I did buy the Pico 3. So I do have the Pico browser, which is built on Chromium 90. So it's about 10 versions behind at least. I couldn't find a runnable Wolvik build for Pico. I don't know whether there's any plans to do it. I test everything for everyone. So I don't know whether it's enough of a priority. I mean, you have so many platforms to consider. I fully understand that Pico, and certainly the Pico 3 is going to be overshadowed by the Pico 4, which is due any moment now. But I'd be interested to see Wolvik on the Pico platform, if that and you know, could you say anything about whether there are plans to do that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. But I think Igalia, they need to make make a statement exactly about where they are. So we are one of the we're like the lead sponsor on the Wolvik project, but they're also officially, I think they mentioned both HTC and Lynx, and I know there are others in the pipeline as well. Hopefully the Pico 4 will become one of the dominant, you know, volume-wise consumer devices by the Quest. That's what could happen, right? So that should be on the top priority list.
Excellent. We all have to go out and buy the Pico 4 to support that. All right, Julie, over to you.
Yeah,
we can get a rate discount.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I just thought I'd just because it's the top of the hour, right? Like we're an hour into this session, and I just wanted to kind of ground ourselves on what we have talked about already, and also provide a little bit of insight into production from my perspective as well. I've been, you know, I've built I think I'm sitting at over 140 projects since 2016 that are in the realm of immersive technology since then. So I've had a little bit of experience with this, but more so in the last year or so, just building out both enterprise training solutions with a client, an enterprise client, as well as marketing solutions for a brand as well. And one of the things that we kind of have a 5-step process of discovery, design, development, detailing, and deployment. And then we actually debrief at the end of it, which is, I think, the most important part about innovation, is that you debrief at the end of a project to figure out how to fix it better for the next one. That's a huge piece of production. Through the discovery process and the ideation stage, obviously there's a creativity part of that happens, and it all needs to stem from the needs assessment from the client. So that's one of the other early pieces that you should be getting from the client, is what are their objectives and key results from these experiences, understanding what is the intention of the experience, as well as the deployment should also be talked about at the beginning. Who are you building this for? What do they already have in technology that could make that transition the easiest for them? Personally, I've been working with just 3D on the web with our Metaverse engine solution, which I'm sure you'll hear a little bit more throughout the summit. But Metaverse, my company, we called our company Metaverse back in 2016, way before the trend happened. So that's been an interesting journey. We spell it a little bit differently as well, METAVRSE. And we have our own proprietary technology, but everything we run, all of our experiences on WebXR. So I'm happy to drop a link into the chat so you can take a look at for yourself. But just going through that production process and understanding what that client is building and who they're building it for. Maybe we could take a dive into people's conversations about needs assessments and what kind of information or questions do you ask the client that, that bring that about. For us, we ask, if you were to land in the XYZ brand world, right? I won't use the word term metaverse, but if you landed in a world, what would it look like? And most clients can't answer that. People don't know what their brand looks like in a 360-degree world. What does it look like behind me? What do I interact with? What do I play with? And that leads into 3D objects and assets that have to be in the space and whether they need to be made or created and stuff. But I just thought I'd kind of shift the conversation from the ideation stage to a little bit more detailed effect of what happens when we start building these things and how do we get that information from the client. And I'll stop there and go back to my notes.
I want to add one comment and then call on Florian, a comment about asking clients, what will that look like? And the next question is, what will that feel like? Because you're designing a space and an experience. Like if you walk into a room, the question is, what does that feel like, that experience?
And I'll take my acronym of return on experience, remember?
Return on experience.
Return on experience. Take the profitability or anything, but if you're getting that feeling back, then you've made a good experience, and then you can go into profits from there. All right.
Thank you, Julie. No, and we will pivot a little bit to that after Florian. And I also we've got quite a few other people on the call, and this town hall is for everybody. So please feel free to switch your cameras on or not and join in the conversation. And maybe after Florian, we'll pick up where Julie's going with this and invite some of the other speakers to become part of the conversation. So with that, over to you, Florian.
Thank you. I love that return on experience. I just wanted to say one thing is I've done experiences on SIGSTOF since 2 years now. I think I've been focused on SIGSTOF specifically because the Quest 1 and 2 have been doing amazing in terms of getting users onto WebXR. But recently I've also gotten comments from various people, including developers on Molvik, that there's also still a huge market for 3DOF experiences as well. So to have more accessibility for your WebXR application, I think it's also recommended to have mechanisms to navigate the applications in a 3DOF context. So with limited input and with limited resources as well. So not only go for the high end. I think Daniel was talking about that, people just optimizing for the Quest 2. I think we should need to also think about how would the application be if it was, for a lower end device as well. And there's a lot of them coming into especially the Asian market recently from HTC and Huawei. And those definitely get in more users into the ecosystem, I think, as well.
Yeah, good point. 3DOF versus 6DOF. It's not only the legacy devices, it's actually just the appropriateness of 3DOF in certain situations. But that as a developer or producer, then you have this growing medium, but you have the extra challenge of having to consider, we're only just learning the design concepts and journeys around this new medium. We're having to deal with those two factors as well. So absolutely. So thanks for that. And I want to pick up what Julie was feeding in there, the conversations with clients. And I guess clients is a big part of what drives this development, but sometimes the needs are your own needs, but there's still considerations around how to design and deliver this. So I do want to invite other people to join this conversation. Feel free to raise your hand. We've got Yinch raised his hand. Just before I come to you, Yinch, we've got, who else have we got? I know we've got Molly here. You've been in town halls before. We've got Michael Owen, Paula Vanessa, LMW. Feel free to just listen in, but don't feel that this conversation is only for certain people. Jump in, ask questions, get involved. All right, Jens.
Hi, thanks, Daniel. I just wanted to mention, like, leading on from what Florian was saying about the 3DOF and 6DOF, and also what Julie was saying about client needs. I worked briefly with a product designer who on racing bikes, and he needed to be able to show elements of his design to his client remotely, and this was during lockdown, during the pandemic. And one of the things I was able to do by using the WebXR part of WebXR, I was able to create a common room where the product designer was in a VR room that he could move around in, and his client was looking at the bike through a phone, which was in the room. So it was combining AR, it was the AR-VR crossover for them to look at a shared product. And so the idea of using phones, not only just like 6DOF headsets and 3DOF headsets, but even phones themselves, modern phones they are 6DOF monoscopic devices. I mean, I classify them as an AR class device. WebAR is only really implementable through 8th Wall on iOS Safari, but certainly on Android, you can do pretty good WebAR these days. I was actually surprised. It's actually matured over time, but the idea that you try to access the broadest range of devices, then like mobile phones is definitely there on the list.
Yeah, thank you for that input. I'm excited about AR. Like right now, for me, VR is much more accessible, but I'm genuinely excited to see more good AR and mixed reality come through as the devices and the tools become available. Thanks, Jens. We've got Yuri asking a question, and in the chat, I think you were intrigued by Julie's comment about return on experience. Is that right, Zuri?
Yeah, so I'm interested in figuring out how people measure their metrics when it comes to tracking the customer engagement, especially like how much time and what people are engaging with while on 3D websites. And if you guys have built in like marketing in the website itself, how do you see how effective that was? Like, and I didn't know if it was different from a Google experience or Google Analytics experience. I think Julie was talking about she created a Z-dimensional data analytics dashboard. I was interested in hearing more about that. But for anybody who is already in the space, like how do you track the effectiveness of your campaigns and of your designs?
Right, because data tracking is huge in web design. Is that healthy in WebXR design? Julie, do you know more about that?
Well, I think everybody on this call knows you can literally capture any single piece of data now possible. Okay, let's just get that. I think this is where putting my Metaverse forum hat on of security and privacy is. What are you collecting from the client, from the audience? And again, we're talking about marketing worlds and training enterprise worlds. There's two different data captures there. You need to figure out what you're collecting. And then I'm going to say the user needs to know what you're collecting, right? Because you have to put those permissions in. That's what we're all building ethical designs here. So, what you could capture, Zuri, anything you want. You want to see how long I can look at something, or I change it to red, to blue, to, this texture or this texture. You want to know where they are coming from, how they got there, anything in the link. You're now dealing with more than, two axes of data. You're now dealing with a third dimension, which is spatial. So it could be anything you want. It could be how many
controllers, maybe, right?
Yeah, exactly. How many times you use your right hand over the left hand? I think it comes back to what do you want to know, and start there instead of how can you capture, and then obviously putting best practices and standards on that collection.
Right. I think David is commenting along that point as well. David Jumeau just mentioned you can track everything, but translating that into something meaningful is the challenge.
Exactly.
Yeah, Zuri, continue, and David, if you want to chime in after that.
I was saying, I hope that it doesn't seem as if I'm asking how, like just how, you know, it's more about like, again, how has it worked for you versus just, okay, well, can you track this? Like, how does it work for you? And
I can give you an example.
practical.
Yeah, I can give you
Right.
an example from it. We set up a dashboard on an experience for a client once. It was questions. So it was testing their knowledge about the product. And they realized at the end of it that there was no tracking, or it was abnormally low. After looking into it more, we realized that the question wasn't being asked right. They didn't understand it, or there was a bit of information missing. They went back and they changed it, and the number went up, and they knew that product. So, you know, this is something that can result in an instantaneous change most of the time, you know, in developments. And again, it comes back to what you're capturing, but yeah, it has a good effect.
And then you capture that with a Z dimensional,
well,
like you have to build your own proprietary work, or you get to contract out, or is this something that everybody has their own version of?
For my work personally, is part of the Metaverse game engine that we have, and 3D editor. We can host that within deploying our experiences on the web. So I can send some information to you afterwards too.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for that, Julie. We've just had also Jonathan Hale join, who's the CEO of Wonderland. We were talking about Wonderland earlier. Welcome, Jonathan. Also going to be one of our speakers at the Production Summit. Hi, thank you for joining. How are you doing today?
Unfortunately, I caught the flu, so my voice is going to be very rough, but I'm doing well otherwise. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, excellent. You're going to be talking about creator tools next week with some guests. You want to share a little bit about your take on the state of creator tools at the moment?
Yeah, so Wonderland Engine, and I'm unsure what you've said so far because I just joined, obviously. But Wonderland Engine is trying to bring the support that a development environment like Unity or Unreal Engine gives to the developer to developers on WebXR and on the web. So it's trying to be a full development platform with all of the optimizations and all of the kind of tools that you usually get from these engines to support you during development, to work faster and be able to focus on your application rather than on low-level optimization and just really worry about your content. And so that's what Wonderland Engine set out to do.
Right. Yeah, I think alongside Future Way, Daniel Lundgren's on the call, and Julie and Alan Smithson's Metaverse engines, we're seeing some really powerful, versatile creation tools coming along. I specialize not so much in WebXR myself, I'm all of kind of XR. I'm really encouraged by how people can get creative without needing to code. You know, love coding, nothing wrong with it. But for the masses, their entry point is going to be, give me the tools so I don't have to code and just get into it. And like now with websites, it's drag and drop. What you see is what you get kind of thing. Before you had to code every line of it. I dream of the day when I put my headset on, I've got a CAD level design tool that I can freely create with. I can port that into every other experience, and it's all interoperable. And ideally, I can do that with a classroom full of kids or students or other creators. So a long way to go, but this great work. Really important tools, hardwares, and softwares. Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Go on.
Yeah, just a quick note. Wonderland Engine is meant less as like a no-code environment, but more as really a development tool. So I see Jens and Florian are here, for example. They've been building like really groundbreaking experiences for WebXR with SkiFit 365 and Boulder World as like some of the flagship titles. Also featured both, oh no, Boulder World not yet, but probably very soon featured on the new tab page in the Oculus browser, for example.
Yeah.
But so what we're trying to do is like really give developers the power that with these development tools that they expect usually from Unity or Unreal Engine on native. It's less that we try to make it as easy as possible for anyone to create WebXR, but really like if you have a multi-skilled team, developers working with creatives, that they can work together in this common environment and are able to build as pretty much any experience that they want, just general level purpose of development environment that Unity, for example, provides as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that, Jonathan. We've got Yuri raising his hand again. So I keep calling you Yuri. You know why? I'm reading a book about space, which is talking about Yuri Gagarin. So
no, Zuri Chambers. That's my name. Don't worry about it, but like Zuri Chambers, let's go. Hi, nice to meet you all. I'm Jonathan. I'm really excited to talk to you because earlier in the chat, we were talking about cohorts. And I'm a member of a virtual production cohort for Unreal. I just graduated from it, and it kind of just showed, it was like a good onboarding tool for that type of engine. And it gave me the opportunity to really stretch my wings. I didn't know if you guys had ever considered doing something like that for Wonderland Engine. And
you mean like a cohort or like a course where
like a cohort course that teaches people or more onboard people interested in creating WebXR experiences?
So we have a free YouTube course. It's like an hour of introduction to how to build like a full game with like a climbing game mechanic on YouTube that you can find there. There might be some more course material coming up eventually, but we have nothing we can officially talk about there yet.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to take a moment. We've got Daniel. I'm going to come to you just in a moment, Daniel. Before we do, I just briefly want to share my screen just for a short moment and show you some of the support that is already lined up for next week's production summit. So just let me share my screen here. My computer's being a bit slow. Here we go. So we're in good hands here with this team and the support. I hope you're seeing that. Just leave it up for 30 seconds or so. A lot of players in this industry, in this ecosystem, are, supporting these efforts. So we're not alone. We're in good company, and it's important to remember that every little block that we build is contributing to a greater whole, and everybody benefits from it. So thank you all for your support here. Again, thank you, FutureWay. You've been one of the lead sponsors, or the lead sponsor for a lot of this work. But also every community member here listening, thinking, contributing, sharing. That's how we build this thing. So I'll stop sharing there. And if I'm not mistaken, we've got Daniel Sternklar from View 3D TV with us. How are you doing, Daniel?
Yes, hi. Just love the conversation. I wanted to go back to Julie's point of, you are in conversations with a client, and the client's kind of like, now what? If they're a retail client, do you simply, model a 3D version of their store and what it looks like inside and so on? But also, you can educate them by showing them demonstrations, maybe of other projects, as long as they're not under NDA, or just give them some ideas. But also, you got to educate them that, hey, in this type of environment, guess what? The laws of physics can be violated. You can have people flying. You can have people floating. You could have people that when they're a particular location, they get beamed to yet another location. So I think something to keep in mind is, just don't duplicate the real world in the virtual world. that you can actually take a whole new perspective now of what the interactions can be like. And that's something to keep in mind.
Very much. That is very, very true for education as well. When we consult education institutions, we're always saying, don't replicate the current education model in VR, because you don't have to, and you're kind of missing the point. But then on the other side of that coin, a good friend of mine often says, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. So I agree, playing with physics is fantastic when that's appropriate. But sometimes that's just the shiny new object. When the quality of the return, like Julie was saying, the return actually comes from something more fundamental. But I don't want to detract from your point at all. Do you find that one of the challenges is you say to a client, hey, you can do anything, but they don't really know what that means, and trying to make them understand that you can literally do anything? The only way I know how to do that, and I do a little, is actually take people in with a VR headset to a platform, give them a demo, and kind of blow their minds a little bit, and then they go quiet, and then they come back and say, okay, well, if we can do that, how about we change our approach a little?
Yeah, actually, in a way, you're addressing a pet peeve of mine about some presentations. I really dislike, especially when you're talking about new technologies, that you have a speaker that goes up there and talks for 20 minutes and then they're gone. They didn't show anything. And I think something that, and even if it's just a WebXR conference among peers, and not the general public, is to show demos of what you can do, and even better if you can give out a URL or a QR code, whatever, where people can actually experience it on their equipment, whether it's a phone or a desktop.
Another good point. Yeah, that's the approach we've taken with educators in VR. Back in 2020, we put on a summit. It was all pretty much experiential. It was the first one we did. It was very big, and we were wonderfully naive at the time. And we realized from that one, we invited speakers to give presentations in VR. And that's exactly what we got. We got, out of 150 people, we probably got 130 people with PowerPoint presentations in VR. Now, like I said, we were naive and we were inexperienced, and it was fine the way it was. But the next time we did something big, we actually said, right, no more presentations. Why are we going into VR? To put on this massive production to then only stand on a stage and give PowerPoints, which people hate in the real life. Right?
Exactly.
The second time round we did it, we concentrated a lot more on conversations. And I'm now kind of dreaming up for our possibly third big production around the concept of an experience festival, where, we're not going to ask the speakers, because if you ask the speakers, you get speakers. And that's appropriate in certain formats. But when you want to, push the boundaries of what's possible and walk the walk with these technologies, you have to ask for something different to be able to produce something different. So great point. Thank you for that. I see AJ raising your hand. Go on.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I had a client just a couple of weeks ago, and he's a teacher. He's a clever guy. He's learning to code, and he's trying to make a fundraiser for his school up in New York. And the amount of people that he wants to recreate the classroom, and I'm saying, I think he took a bit of offense. And I'm very honest, and I don't care if people get offended as long as I get heard, because sometimes you need feedback, and if you're in an echo chamber of people that are, just encouraging the wrong direction, I think that's toxic sometimes and very disruptive, and it lets me get friends and enemies as well sometimes. But this teacher, he wanted to recreate the classroom, and I said to him, you've got VR, the power of VR. Do you really want to recreate the only place these kids don't want to be? Do you want to recreate their prison, their virtual prison, and then confine it with height and desks everywhere, and there's another way of thinking. And I think that if you leave the creation aspect to the client, it's not healthy. You know, these people have a job to do and sure they've got ideas. Yeah. But as the producer, or as the coder, or as the, you know, this is your job to be creative. And I think that people kind of forget that. You have to steer people a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of our conversations are about not replicating what doesn't already work in the real world in XR. But yeah, Daniel,
that's where portals come in, right? And you know, for us, we're building a virtual mall called Mall, and retailers, while they want to design something interesting, they struggle with that design concept. So showing up at a place like the classroom or like that store that they already have, that brick and mortar, and then being able to click on an object that could take them to another world completely. That's what our technology is all about, right? Is like transforming what is real into that digital space. So, you know, taking that step back, make a cool classroom that's similar to the classroom, but it's what you do in the classroom that's going to make all the difference.
And it was for me, it's the details. Like, I remember the guy was really obsessed with how to recreate the stairs and how we traverse the stairs. And I'm like, dude, nobody wants to do that. You know, just a little portal, you click on it and you're upstairs, you're there instantly. Nobody needs to see every step. And then he was creating problems like, how do we go up the stairs and move the camera? It doesn't work like that, you know? Yeah. So I think that
are my footstep sounds synced up as well? Come on, man, if we're gonna go that far.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, there was a conversation about, you know, putting the fire stairs, the stairwell and the fire alarms in these virtual spaces. Do you have to put those in there? You know, but if you're doing a simulation, like, you know, hey, then yeah, you do need those things. But
I personally do find those small details quite alluring in a space, and I think sometimes those little details can set a space apart from a lot of other things, you know, just that attention to realism. And then, like you said, yeah, do something in the space that then takes you somewhere else. The lobby effect, always have a nice way to spawn a user into something familiar, and then the reveal. Don't just throw them in the deep end.
Right. Yeah, again, a little bit of a story or a journey. Coles, I know you work a lot with Blender Unity and build amazing worlds in Altspace. Are there any, but you also work with WebXR to the best of my knowledge. Are there any considerations when that you take from one to the other?
Actually, I'll be honest, I'm having to unlearn a lot of things. Going from game engine development back to WebXR, where a lot of my special effects and particles and shaders and things are not supported. So, you know, getting the effects of some of the things I want to achieve sometimes is a little more difficult right now until some of that stuff becomes more accessible. Like Frame VR just introduced a node shader system. I haven't gotten to play with it, but I'm super excited about it because I do node shader editing in Unity. And so when things like that come to it, now I'm more excited, you know, being able to upload my own meshes, apply my own shaders to things, and get the effects that I can achieve in a game engine. And I don't see that right now with, like, there is a big advantage to using Unity and Unreal to get certain visual effects right now over WebXR, but it's coming up. And I'm certainly trying to, you know, adopt GLTF standards in everything that I build so that at least when it needs to switch over to WebXR, it will be ready.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, that's super interesting to me. What kind of features do you see missing?
Well, just easy access to using custom shaders. I know that they can be used. It's just not an intuitive. It's just not. The tools aren't there to make it easy to implement some of these things. I was just talking in chat about if someone came up with like a nice object manipulation library that could be used across multiple platforms, something that you just while in there, you know, we have standards in web for building forms for various things like that. Why don't we have these things in 3D yet, where, like, say I want a plane to spawn with a text and a button? Well, I have to create every single piece of that and place it and do the, there's nothing that just creates that. So that's a missing piece right there. Someone needs to make the library of creating just simple objects and interfaces. because I find that to be the biggest hang up in creating in WebXR or even 3D really, is just getting information to the user and then having a thing for them to touch and hit and, you know, interact with. Because like I said, it has to be built from scratch every single bit. And visual stuff too, like reflection maps. Notice a lot of the hub spaces don't actually I notice a lot of the spaces don't support reflections, which I don't even understand. It's a baked cube map. It doesn't have to be real time. It doesn't have to be performant heavy. There's just not there. Like Frame doesn't have them. VR Land doesn't have them. A few, you know, and that everything that you do with metals and normals just turns black and kills instantly. It's gone. It's just all the effect is gone. You can't really have good water without reflections. Like I don't know. There's certain standards and things that I just haven't seen implemented across the few WebXR experiences I've been using. I have not used them all. Someone else may totally have fixed this. I'm sure, you know, plenty of you have. So,
but that's what we're here for, right? To share and learn. So if there are any solutions, please put them in the chat or reach out to Austin or build it.
I have not tried Materialize CSS. That's interesting.
Yeah, I was just looking at that earlier today. I think it might be a good resource. I don't think that it addresses every single problem that you just mentioned, but it does kind of streamline some of the material mapping. So let me know how it plays out for you, Austin.
Yeah, I'll play with it. I will. I like stuff like this. There's a guy in AltSpace that created his own thing that nobody else really has, and it's a library he built that translates Flexbox CSS into 3D planes and objects. And so his interfaces look gorgeous. They're amazing, and everything's all perfectly aligned with the right margins, and you know, buttons are clickable, whatever, in rows and columns. And he just has to do it in, you know, basically CSS. And so I know it's possible. I know that there is a way. I just don't know how to do it.
Great stuff.
Oh, sweet.
Well,
see, Wonderland Engine. Yes, right on.
We're an hour and a half into our town hall. We got another hour. We've got another half an hour. And listening to these conversations, I'm getting excited about next week, October 13th, for the WebXR Production Summit. I hope that we maybe hear some of the answers to some of the questions and desires and wish lists we have here. But also we're going to be feeding some of what we hear here today. And I know Julie's taking some notes. If you've ever seen Julie's notes, it's for me, it's voodoo how she ends up with that's at the end of the day. So please know that what we're discussing here, it doesn't end here. It gets captured and fed in, and then also feeds into future summits or other kind of events that the team puts on. Let's just quickly go over some of the other topics that we're going to be hearing about next week to see if any of them stand out with regards to what we might want to touch on today. I'm just going to go through a little bit here. We've got, for example, Wolvik browser we're going to be covering. That's really exciting. Daniel, you were mentioning that earlier. Standardizing is not necessarily the sexiest conversation, but probably one of the fundamentally most important ones.
Yes, it is. It's so sexy.
Planning for WebXR augmented reality in the headset, right? The advent of XR, augmented reality and mixed reality, I'm really excited about that development this year. I know that I believe that both the next Meta headset and the Pico headset both have fairly decent pass-through. So I other than the HoloLens, I haven't really tried so much. Really excited about that. Here's one. Creating new realities with generative AI. Let's talk about that briefly, because I've found myself probably too many times now calling 2022 the year of AI. Started with text to image generation things and that flood wave art that's come out. My son Ziggy, he's 13, and he started using AI text generators to play kind of Dungeon and Dragon role plays where the AI is pretty much the dungeon master, telling the story that then determines the gameplay. How accessible is AI to feed into production of WebXR experiences and products? Are you seeing any integration there of AI being useful or creative?
Oh, very much so. Yeah. And the speed in which it is becoming more so is almost frightening. Like just watching it evolve over this year, like you said, it's like, oh, that's a neat thing. Oh, those faces are real now. Like, it jumped really fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen a lot of people. I know personally some modelers who've used like Midjourney and DALL-E and stuff to create architecture styles for inspiration for then they go in, they look at it and build. It's not like they're creating meshes yet, but I know that there are some pretty wild examples of guys creating meshes out there out of just draw a stick figure and it creates a full mesh for you.
Well, on that, I was explaining to somebody, I think it was yesterday, the day before, individually, I've seen videos about the following things. So we know about text to image. And then you may have seen image to 3D, right? Then somebody here in the UK, on Twitter, I saw him take a video to 3D space.
Whoa,
so
what?
A short video of a backyard turned into a very convincing 3D space using Nerf technology. Then I saw an image to video, but where you could fly outside of the frame of the image. So let's say you're taking an image of a statue. Now the AI can fill in to the left, right, and above, and it creates a video you can fly off with. Put those things together, you can go from a text input to a 2D image, to a 3D image, to a 3D space, to a 3D video. So that's literally speaking reality into existence. Now, granted, those are all separate at the moment, but give it 5, 10, 15 years even.
Not even that long.
I expect
to see like the first major Hollywood AI-driven movie in a couple years.
There you go. What does that mean for production? I mean,
I think we're just going to find new ways to integrate these tools. I mean, there's going to be a lot of butthurt and people are going to, oh, it's replacing me, but not really. Not if you innovate and move yourself sideways to work with it instead of letting it run you over.
Right. Yeah. Like I was saying, there's already, my son is watching YouTubers who are taking the AI text generation to battle against his Twitch followers. So the Twitch followers are giving him inputs. He's putting those inputs into AI. It's a bit involved, but there are creative uses coming. I'm so enthusiastic about this generation of kids growing up, getting their hands on these tools in a way that we don't even understand. I mean, right here, we're all innovators, right at the cutting edge, right? But when the kids, they don't overthink things. Give me an AI tool and let me create a game with it. They just combine it in all kinds of new ways. So maybe here's a general question. Production, we're working with what we know, always the case. Are you looking actively to what's new and coming out to inform your production? Must be, right? Oh, I see you talking, Zuri, but I think you were muted there.
I was just saying, I think it depends on how baked in it is to your production workflow. I mean, the same way that you were just describing the generational differences is it's similar to like how you would describe a business's workflow and production. If you have the right team for it is part of it. If you have the right expertise versus like how much emphasis do you place as a organization on utilizing or experimentation, like how much wiggle room is there for experimentation in the early stages of your production, and how quickly can you streamline that and turn it into a workflow that makes sense for your business. I think that's really what I will be asking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Is it suitable? And yeah. I just want to pick up on Jimmy Sixtov put in the chat. Prompt engineer is a whole new category of jobs. A prompt engineer. But you know what? That'll last like 5 years, and then that'll be replaced again. So yeah, but love it. Heard it here
well, then you'll have AI that come up with the prompts for the other AI, and you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, we can all go on holiday. I love it. Yeah, so we have many other talks happening next week. I won't go through all of them. There are too many to cover, but I am going to bring up one or two more. For example, avatars, money in the metaverse, independent makers. And I know there was a comment in the chat just now about ethical implications. That's a whole summit unto itself, the ethical implications of that. Independent makers, we've got a great conversation there. What else? The future of social VR. I'm really excited about that. That's kind of my kettle of fish, my wheelhouse. Advancing the ecosystem, we're going to be hearing more from Daniel and Richard Regard Grass there. David Smith with Croquet. Scaling WebXR, democratizing WebXR. We have so many great conversations coming at us next week. Julie, what you're taking the pulse of this conversation?
Yeah,
want to
share a little bit of share. I can do a bit of share screen and see what we've come up with so far.
Let's have a bit of a look at what the
And again, I always, there's a little bit more to this next week. I'm just taking very high levels. So I started off with just kind of identifying some of the problems that I kept hearing here in red. You can see, I think everybody can see that. Every client's on a different journey, which I think that's a given. WebXR, unreliable transformation from Unreal or some of the native applications into WebXR. Metaverse is a confusing term. There's frustration on terms and words. There's new design challenges, the coding and law of physics. And I don't know if anybody wants to drop anything in the chat, I can add it. I'm trying to go as fast as I can, but if I miss something, I can certainly add it. And I can pick it off the chat there. And then
standardization.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. Standard, oops. So then I went into, like what was important. My second and my other ones were just processes, and then I've got a resources column there. So what was important? Education, stories inspire production.
Yeah.
Technology needs to be a medium, and a medium we never talk about. Designers who are used to physical spaces. I think that's key if you're going to start to have people on, especially through the discovery and ideation process of learning the needs assessment and the OKRs, is have those designers a part of the team, because it's all about spatial awareness, and that's what they they already have that, because that's kind of in their mindset already. Barrier to creation is lowered and lowered. Conveying emotions in the avatar is going to be really important. Sport to story. I thought that was really interesting. I think Ian said that. I like that one, because it's kind of a twist of something, because nobody wants to build games, right? Enterprise is like, no, we're not building a video game, and you're video game, but then we have to add that gamification component in it to make it interesting, fun, and rewardable and returnable, right? And yeah, we create a little bit of a sport out of it, but it creates the story, it creates the why, it creates the reasoning behind visiting this experience. I just Oculus Connect is October 11th.
That's going to be interesting. That's going to come in right after Oculus Connect, so I imagine they'll be interested in sharing thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, we should probably make sure we address that next week.
I heard they changed their name. They're not Oculus anymore.
well, if they do that, they're going to have one hell of a branding issue.
Yeah. I just wanted to very quickly jump on something in the middle of what you're saying. It was triggered by the idea of technology fading into the background. I think Yinch said this, and that you forget the technology. Actually, that's for me one of the most compelling things about VR, and I mean headset VR. And I realized this early on because I never really liked educational technology before VR came along. What's for me beautiful about a headset is I forget the headset. I'm in the experience. When I'm looking at a tablet, a mobile phone, a whiteboard, I'm always dealing with that damn tech. When I put the headset on, it fades away. It's right on my head, but it's like you can't point to it. Just wanted to share that the headset disappears or the technology disappears.
Yeah, it's so true. So true.
I think it depends too on the experience as well, like whatever you're doing in the headset. Like if you still are in the headset and you're in a boardroom with, you know, a whiteboard and things popping up in front of you and you're sitting at a fake laptop, like people are recreating that kind of stuff too.
So true. I also captured, we need to know the user's why, right? We know the client's why, but do we know the user's why? I think Amity Alka had said that, and that kind of triggered me because even asking my marketing clients, I asked that, but I don't think we, you know, and I think that's the most important part is creating the persona of who you're building this for. So that's another piece that we also have is, you know, who is the audience and create that persona. Is it a male or a female? Is what age group? Who are they? What role do they play? Why do they care? Right. Storytelling comes from experiences, ROX, return on experience, give developers more power to create, take perspective of interactions like you can fly, simple objects and animations and editors, and ethical implementation. So if there's anything else I can pick up, group learning is important. I got that from Zuri, and Yinch, I'll pick up some of your stuff there too.
You have a very unique skill, Julia. I'm always impressed.
Why, thank you. Thank you. I don't know. Just, you know, I'm learning too. So I think that's kind of one of my superpowers. I just turn my learning into everybody's learning. So I'll go with it.
If I remember correctly, are these available somewhere afterwards?
Afterwards, we post in the Discord channel. It's really, you know, and I'll do this again next week. This is part of the sense making. So we'll do it twice next week. I'll do it for the first half of the show, and then we'll do it for the fall, and we'll debrief on that. And I think, you know, the whole concept here is we're sharing how we're doing this. So, you know, even just taking some of these points, we'll create the PDFs afterwards and share. To me, I feel like these are the points that should go to the Metaverse forum to say, okay, this is what the world is talking about right now. We need to address all of these things. So, you know, that's kind of, you know, the evolution of the sense making isn't just to stay on a 2D sheet and get buried somewhere. It's it needs to evolve into standards and into processes, workflows. What's the workflow for, you know, for the storified learning? What's the workflow for design thinking model of empathy?
Right.
You know, these are all the things that we're going to need to, you know, and some companies may keep it secret, but, you know, for the whole ecosystem to evolve, it's better right now to share so that we can all help each other rise to, you know, rise this technology in different ways.
A rising tide lifts all boats. I forget who told me that. That's another thing that excites me about this work is the community and the openness and the sharing. So thank you for that, Julie.
Yeah, no worries. And I know there's so much stuff missing. Like we didn't even get into 3D asset process production or configurations or interactions. You know, there's NFTs, there's blockchain connections, all of
money
that stuff.
Metaverse, all of this, right?
The marketplace, the badges, like if you're rewarding people, if they get things correct, and rewards. But I'll pass it back to you for the last 10 minutes, and we'll see how we can get the rest of the group involved in contribution and wrap up.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. Thank you. I'm on the wrong screen here. Let me just come back. Where's my Zoom? There we go. Hang on. Apologies. I think I've got it. Okay, yeah. So thank you for that, Julie. Yeah, we got a couple of minutes left, and I just wanted to open. Oh, we got Ben. Hey, Ben, you've been in the background
everybody.
there.
Yeah, I've been in the background the whole time. First of all, I wanted to compliment both you, Daniel, and Julie on doing what you do so well. This has really been a great town hall, and the way that you put everything together. But the reason I'm here is I want to thank everybody who's here, because we do this town hall because we want to hear from you, but we do the production summit, all of the summits that we've done, all of the productions that we do for the WebXR community are for you. And so when we're doing these shows, it's usually it's a one-way ticket where we're bringing on experts and we're streaming their thoughts and bringing you things about specific topics. Here is an unstructured, not planned out opportunity to hear from you directly. So it's really important for us to put faces and voices and ideas that are, crowdsourced as opposed to curated. So it's really important. So I just wanted to thank everybody. And if anybody feels so inclined, if you want to turn on your cameras, I'd love to sort of take a group picture and a screenshot here to commemorate the moment. And love having you all here. So thank you all very much for participating in the discussion. And I'm keying up the Sophia.
Hey David.
Mats.
Hey Mats. Karen. Fantastic.
All right, who else we got? Jimmy Sixtoff. What do you look like, man?
Like OBS.
Always seeing Jimmy Sixtoff. He's a regular at our Metaverse events, which that's another reminder is a great way to experience the WebXR summits is in the Metaverse. We spin up 5 watch parties, 2 in native VR apps, Altspace and Engage, 3 on WebXR platforms, Hubs, VR Land, and Frame, all of which you can party hop and network and meet the people here in VR, watch the show together. And so I hope you can do that next week. So I'm going to take this screenshot now. So
is that Austin in one of the platforms there right now? I think Austin, if you see, is in there.
Yeah, right.
This is my avatar. This is working way better than I expected it to.
Right. Say cheese. Hi, everyone.
Hey.
All right,
Oh
there
no,
we go.
my
One
eyes.
more, and 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you very much, and thank you for being here, Daniel and Julie. We got 8 minutes.
Thank you, everybody.
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. And lovely to see all the cameras switch on even just for a moment. I know sometimes we listen in more than we actually are fully present. That's fine.
I want to call out that LMW is actually Lisa Marie Werzinger, who is also on a panel next week. So what have you got to say, Lisa?
Fantastic. Want to briefly share something, Lisa? I don't want to put you on the spot. There's no pressure, but it's okay. Yeah, you're mute now. We'll hear from her shortly, maybe. Not a problem. Oh, there you go. You with us? Unfortunately, not. No. Raise your hand if you get it working, and then. So yeah, it's been a great for me afternoon. Listening to you share your perspectives on WebXR production. I'm excited about where we're at with this. Obviously, always still more that we want, and we want it yesterday. But working with what we've got, I'm encouraged that we're gonna that 2023 will be as exciting as maybe 2022 was. Who's maybe quick hands up? Who's excited about the state of development? Who's not more frustrated than they are excited? Who's more excited than frustrated? Yeah. That's a good sign. All right, that's a good sign. Frustration is part of the journey because you got to bang your head through the wall sometimes. But as long as we're still feeling good about it in general. Want to try you again, Lisa? Still not hearing you. unfortunately. But we'll have, I think, about a half an hour with you next week.
If you go to your audio settings, your mic might not be selected correctly. Might be an alternate.
Might be selected. Yeah. Right. Well, Austin has jumped ahead into his platform there. Any closing comments in the chat?
Daniel, I took a screenshot and just dropped it in. So anybody that's here right now, go to that screenshot, and that's just everything that I just presented.
Thank you so much.
Sweet.
All right. So just maybe before we close, we do have a little bit of time left, but I want to say, Daniel and Future Way, for all of your support over the many summit series. Once again, thank you, and keep supporting Wolvik. We need more versatile browsers. So yeah, great work with that.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. And maybe just as a closing, I'm going to drop in the YouTube channel for all of our previous WebXR Summit series. There's like so much content in there, and all of the shows the talks we had a few weeks ago in the Brand Summit with Sophia are in there, and all the Education Summit experiences. So there's so much resources that are being pushed out. What I do when I face a client that is unsure about which direction, giving them a resource to help them learn something is the best way that you can connect with them to help them help build the trust between the two of you. So if you can help them learn some way, give them a solution, give them a talk, give them somebody to follow that they could also learn from. That would be my advice, just as a takeaway. And that's kind of what we've done here with the WebXR Summit series with Daniel and Ben and Sophia, Karen, myself, and the team. And behind the scenes is try and provide those resources so we can all learn together. So
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you also. I see Mats Lundgren there as well. Thank you as well. Hope to hear more from you on upcoming town halls or Summit series. And with that, we're gonna send you off to go and produce the Metaverse engineers to go and build. Everybody
go forth and build. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Be well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Great session, Daniel.
That was fun. That was
fun.
Yeah, well, thank you also. Working with this team is cool. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good.
One great benchmark of how this did was that we had the same audience the whole time.
I was looking at that everybody stayed.
Yeah.
It's 23 or something.
Averaging,
like that.
yeah, it was blinking between 21 and 25, pretty much the whole, like the bottom row was shifting.
Yeah.
But even when it shifted, it was a lot of the same people leaving and coming back. And so it was, to have that level of attention with, this quality of people is really speaks well of what we're serving up here. And so
fantastic.
Really proud of it. Great job. Julie and Daniel, well done. It's now it was streamed to YouTube and Twitch, so we have that archive with a little banner over the top of it that is now in the books, so to speak, and we got more show.
Awesome. Austin, do you know you're
still there? Thanks for
sharing a screen.
Yeah,
I'm gonna jump, guys. I need to get to my son, so thank you. We'll debrief later, and
no, thank you.
Probably meet.
Thanks, Daniel, for everything.
All right.
See you, Daniel.
All right.
See you later. And I gotta go. Molly, if you're still there, I gotta go too.
I'll cut the live stream. Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Buzz.
Thanks, everybody.
See you all later. Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye.
See ya.